All right, here we go. We are live. This is the CNC with Dave Gatton show. I was going to say the number, but I don't have any idea which number we've done a few of these, just a couple. My guests tonight are Rusty Meadows is in the house, Landis Stutes joining us from Virginia, and Becca Miller from the great state of Texas. How you doing?
Texas.
All right, we are going to have a little discussion, probably mostly about Mach 3. We'll try to cover Mach 4 a little bit too, although I don't really know much about Mach 4, other than what I've read on their website pretty much. I did download the trial version one time, but I sure wasn't going to buy it since I've already been a long time Mach 3 user. I was trying to think when I first bought Mach 3, I think it was in 2006 or 7. So I've had it a long, long time. Mach 3, well, 1, 2, and 3 or 4, whatever the company itself, they've been around. I just was looking on their website, and ArtSoft, which is Art, I can't think the guy's last name, Finnerty or something like that. He founded the let's see, let me get back. Yeah, founded ArtSoft in 2001, and then they kind of combined with another company, and hence the name Newfangled Solutions. But they've been around a long time, and Mach 3 is really good stuff in my opinion. But anyway, I was so tickled because my good friend Landis Stutes there sent me an email, and he had gone through and compiled a list of, I guess it was Facebook posts from the group that, different questions about Mach 3, and sent me a list of them. So we're
Efficiency.
If it looks like I'm prepared for the show, I'm not. It's all the legwork. so
checks in the mail.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're going to talk about Mach 3 a little bit. I'm probably going to have to put my glasses on for this because I'm going to be reading a lot. But we've got a bunch of different topics here. But before we get started, let me first go through here and see who all we get here tonight. We got Dave Clemens, Ray Jones, Wayne Hurl, Earl Walker, Troy Pritchard, Dave Matthews, Alan Odell, Keith Painter, Dennis Mills, Thomas Grimm, Steve from Parnell Media, Rob Schuster, Dennis Mills, Kevin Harder, Darren Nageli. I hope I'm saying your name right, Darren. I might be butchering. I'm not very good with names. Harry Ragland, Gary Hammett, my favorite solar man, Ryan Ballard, Charles Lawrence, Bart Bixel, Steve Kronsky, B. Todd Cox, Dave Krause, Stephen Toronto, Jerry Bonifield, Robert Sams, Troy Pritchard. If I know, I may already said him. Let's see, George H. Rothfuss in the house. How you doing, George? And I think I got most of you. If I missed anybody, my apologies. But good crowd here tonight. But yeah, so if you have any particular questions about Mach 3, feel free to put them in the chat. Russ, do you have the chat open? Are you keeping an eye on the chat?
I've got it right here in front of me.
Okay, good. I mean, you can see the same thing I see now.
Right.
Okay, so if you see anything and I miss it, be sure and
Okay.
let me know. But anyway, let's.
As long as you let me have a minute to edge in there, unlike that hobby fella, I can't hardly catch a break with him.
No, it's hard to get a word in edgewise.
He doesn't talk.
You got to be quick. let me first start, and I'm not going to go in these in any particular order, but Landis did have the very first one. He had support, and I think there's a big misconception, I guess, or misinformation about that Mach 3 is no longer supported anymore. Well, I think that's kind of the wrong word to use. It's no longer under development. In other words, the company Newfangled Solutions or Artsoft, they're not developing Mach 3 any further because they came out with Mach 4. But as far as support, there is tons of support. I think you could probably still get a question answered even if you sent them an email, but probably nobody does that because there are literally hundreds of thousands of users of Mach 3 all over the world that, in different forums and Facebook groups and what have you, that will probably be able to get you an answer quicker than if you try to email those folks about Mach 3.
Yeah.
It's just, like I said, it's been around so long and so many people using it that I still recommend it to the hobbyist people that are buying Gatton CNCs versus the Mach 4. The Mach 4, I didn't notice any prices when I was looking over here.
I think it's $200 for that. It's like $25 more, somewhere in that range.
Well, I think it is. Well, let me see if I can find. See, they have two different things for Mach 4. Is the thing though? They have the Mach 4 for the hobbyist, which is $200, and then they have Mach 4 more for a commercial deal. And I'm on a page, I guess, trying to find prices, but
Dave, while you look at that, I actually emailed the people at Mach 3. They tipped me back an email and talked to me about their support. And they said they would support it, and they even still support Mach 2. But they would support it as long as there was someone working there that, still knew Mach 3. They would have any questions. Their big problem is they're in England. So the time difference causes 2 or 3 days to get an answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I found what I was looking for now. The Mach 4 hobby is $200. The Mach 3 is $175. So there's only $25 difference there. But then the Mach 4 industrial is like $1,400. So, and if anybody's, hadn't bought anything yet, they're wanting to kind of look over and compare them, they have, and I'll just share my screen here real quick for a second, guys. But if you go to, I think it was main programs, and then come down here and hit this version comparison, you get this, and I've already downloaded it here and got it opened up with Adobe. But it's got a comparison of the 3 types, the Mach 3, the Mach 4 hobby, and the Mach 4 industrial, which I don't really see anybody that's watching this show probably not going to even be interested in that.
There's really not that many out there that are using Mach 4 that admit to it anyway.
I think there's a few. Folks, and I think a lot of the folks that buy Mach 4 are, they think, well, it's the latest, so I'm starting out brand new. I might as well get that.
Right.
But if you're going to be a hobbyist or even, light production, Mach 3 will do everything you ever need it to do.
You have an off-point question down there from Imaginary Point.
Yeah, we're not even going to discuss the mess of this today. We will, yeah, we'll do a topic on the Mac.
Another big
That was
problem
one
with
of the things in the polls, and it was the one with the least votes. So we're not going to be discussing the Masso here tonight. Sorry.
another problem with that Mach 4 though is the fact that you can only put it on one computer. Where Mach 3, I've got it on five different computers.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah,
it's kind of nice to be able to.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, because you can buy the. I'm trying to get my mouse to cooperate here. Here we go. You can buy the Mach 3 and put it on however many computers you want.
Right.
Whereas you can't with Mach 4. They somehow have it tied into the. Well, help me, Landis. What is it? They got it tied into the PC or something. You register it to a particular PC.
Right.
Yes, it's registered to that number that's inside the PC. It's a little. I can't think of the name of it myself, but it is a register to that machine that you buy it for.
Yeah. It might have that
And
on here.
if that computer dies, you have to call them back, and then they re-register to a different machine.
Right.
They got smart because
They did.
because everybody
Yeah.
it only makes sense for them to do that because people can give it away and everything else, and this way they're protecting their product.
Yeah.
You had a question. I think we already answered that one earlier. Cat feeder for life.
Do you think? Oh yeah, I'm sure we. Do you think the Mach 3 will be supported long term? Well, let me click on this again because I scrolled down here, and again, this is that PDF that has the comparison, and you see where it says online support. It still says yes for Mach 3. So, and like I said, the biggest question is if I was starting out, of course, I've been doing this a long time, but if I was starting out and I didn't already have some software, I would want to buy, and I do this with other things. I like to buy what everybody else is using because it's proven.
Right.
When I go to Amazon to buy a product, I always read the reviews and see. And if I see a whole bunch, if it's got like a 4.5 stars out of 5, and everybody's saying, yeah, it's easy to use, it's works well, blah blah blah. That's what I'll go. But if it's something brand new, I don't like to buy stuff right out of the. A lot of times, I like it to be proven a little bit, especially
right.
You
want a lot of times they have the bugs in the machine, bugs in the program, and you get it, and then you got to work them out and slowly but surely get it to where it should be.
Yeah, it's like especially with
software.
Go ahead, Landis.
So to me, it's a big issue when you talk to people like Mach 3. You're talking to, I call them swivel heads. You're talking to computer software developers who some of them haven't even ran a CNC machine before. But when you talk to people on this group and people that really ran machines, they've seen the problem, or someone in that group has seen the problem, and they've really, real application haven't seen the problem and can help you fix it.
Yeah, real world application. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you were saying before, they're over in England, and it takes a couple of days to get an answer. If you put it on Gatton Facebook page, you're going to get an answer in 5 minutes because there's 1,000 people out there that have had exactly the same problem, or else they know how to fix it, and they're going to tell you because they're the greatest bunch in the world. So it'll just they're willing to help everybody.
Yeah. You got a question from Lost 5757.
Okay, what exactly is bad about Mach 4? We're not saying anything is bad about it. I'm just saying it's one, if you buy it, it's registered to your PC, so you're only going to be able to use once. Whereas with the Mach 3, it wasn't like that. It does everything Mach 3 does and more. I mean, that's what they're developing now is the Mach 4. So we're not saying there's nothing bad about it. I just can't speak to how great it is because I don't use it, but I have used Mach 3 for nearly 15 years. So I know it's good.
Well, one thing that is bad, we've already touched on it earlier, is that you can only put it on one machine.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily
that's not necessarily bad.
Yes. But because somebody might say, well, I'm probably only going to have one machine, but you never know. You might get a machine and think you're just going to do this as a hobby. And the next thing you know, your neighbor and family show stuff that you're making. And all of a sudden you got a little business going. And before long, you need another machine or something. So, yeah, with Mach 3, it was super easy because you can put it on any machines. You can, save your XML and license file, and you were good to go. You could put, computer crash, you just throw it on another one and go.
Yeah.
All right. I think we covered the
machines, and I only have one CNC, but I have it on my office computer just as a backup as much as anything else in case something happens to that computer I have out there on my machine.
Yeah. Cat beater for life. Interesting. YouTube.
Yeah, interesting name. Yeah.
They say one machine thing is how all software is sold now. So anything new is going to be that way. Yeah. That's pretty much the way it all is now.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, that's like you, Dave. You wouldn't want to sell yours and say, here it is, and you can go out and give it to anybody you want to. That's just killing your own business.
Yeah, Mark's got a good comment here. One thing about Mach 3, if the computer dies, I already have it backed up on another computer within 5 minutes. Yeah. And of course, you need to make sure, you save the XML file, which is your machine profiles, and especially your license file.
Right.
You want to save that. So, all right. So I think we've covered the support thing. Well, I guess we also talked a little bit about Mach 3 versus Landis. Do you have anything to add about Mach 4? Have you played around with that at all, or?
I've played with it, and like I said, it's a great program. It's hard to me to learn because, like you said, I started out with Mach. I learned 3, but it's a great program. And like I said, the only thing I didn't like about it was the fact I could only put it on one computer. And for me, I develop drawings and all, and then I run it in my house on my simulation mode and check it out. I like that, so I can bring it to the shop and I know it's ready to go.
Yeah. And also, and we've talked about this before, a lot of us use Vectric, VCAR Pro or Aspire or whatever, and a lot of times you have to really tweak your setting in that software to get the simulation time to come out close. Whereas with Mach 3, and I don't know about Mach 4, I'm assuming it's probably the same. When you run the simulation on that and it'll tell you what the estimated cycle time is going to be. I found that it's usually within a few seconds, one way or the other, on Mach 3. So it's more accurate if you're worried about how long the cycle time is, to do it on Mach 3 than it is doing it through the Vectric products. But again, you gotta tweak the Vectric once you almost have to run it, find out what the exact cycle time is, and then go back to Vectric and play around until you get it to match that. But I don't even worry about how long the cycle time, the Vectric, like I use VCAR Pro. I never worry about how long it says. I go by what Mach 3 says. And like you, Landis, I like to have it on my desktop in here so I can run it without, even before I take it out to the shop.
Well, it looks like Tom Peterson is a big Mach 4 fellow.
Okay.
Possibly he might want to come on this show and detail some of the things that he's seen.
Yeah, Tom, if you're available, we got plenty of room. StreamYard has now changed where you can have up to 10 people in here, kind of like the old Google Hangout. So there's plenty of room if you have a webcam and a microphone and want to come on and talk about Mach 4. I tried to get, I put in the post, I did the poll, and then I said, okay, well, we're going to be talking about Mach 3 and stuff. And, I always will try to get people to come help me do these shows because I can't talk about everything because I don't use everything. Let's see here. Let me see what other questions we get in here.
Not that many.
Okay. All right. I'll wait and see if I hear from Tom. See if he wants to come join us. Anyway, let's move on to another. I see one of the things you had on this list you sent me, Landis, was stability of the system. What kind of comments you got about that?
Well, I got several people complained that they kept losing communications with their USB or to the UC100, and stability. I've talked to a few of them. Stability actually running a machine where they said it was missing steps. And one thing I've learned reading the manuals about Mach 3 is if you make an adjustment, let's say the speed, you've got to watch other areas that it does affect. Speed, if especially that look ahead, look ahead on lines of logic. Mm-hmm. If you jack your speed up and it can't look far enough ahead, you start missing steps. So stability, you got to watch, I say, adjustments you make because it will affect other adjustments. But the big one was stability in the UC100, dropping communications.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other factors too. I know I see a lot of, and I'll probably take some flack from this, I'm sure. But you know me, that doesn't stop me. I see a lot of people wanting to run these things with laptops. And not only are they wanting to run them with laptops, but they're wanting to run their machine and update their Facebook status and this or that, and and then they'll worry about, well, my machine lost connection or something in the middle of the run or whatever. It doesn't take a lot of computer horsepower to run Mach 3, but it doesn't like interruptions. Yeah, it doesn't like stuff. It doesn't like screensavers. It doesn't like
going to
virus protection update. It doesn't like any other program updates. Yeah. It doesn't like any of that stuff. So I always run all my machines and always have now I have run them with a desktop, but I always run them with the Wi-Fi turned off, all the power saving settings and all that turned off. But I usually have dedicated desktops, and I don't have any problems. I
have a desktop that probably is 20 years old, and it's wired in with a parallel cable, and it's not on the internet. It was stripped down and didn't have anything on it except Mach 3. I mean, that's just about all that's on that sucker, and I, knock on wood, never had a moment's trouble with it. Yeah,
well, I'm not saying that Mach 3 is the only thing you should have on there, because I like having electric on there as well, so that if I get out to the shop and I go, oh, I forgot to do this, or I don't have to come back in here. I can pull up Vectric right there in the shop and fix whatever my issue was, and then repost and reload it and go. But again, you don't need a lot of computer horsepower, but you don't need, if you want to play on Facebook or, all that stuff,
Use your phone.
Something else. Run your machine. That's what I say. But I know people won't listen to me because I see it all the time in the Facebook group. Using these laptops, and something happens, and I'm like, oh, did you have all your stuff turned off? Did you have your virus protection updates turned off? You got your power saving things turned off? Your screensaver turned off? And there's so many things on those computers that if you forget one,
that's the one that's going to
match you up. I mean, it might not, but a lot of times it does. And
another secret that us old folks know is if you just put out a word out that you're looking for a computer, you'll have 5 of them delivered to you the next day for free. That people have sitting in their closet somewhere that they bought a laptop and they don't use the old desktop anymore. I have had 4 different ones given to me, and I haven't paid a penny for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm a hoarder. I saved 3 or 4 desktops just in case I might create a new CNC or something.
Yeah, I never. I've got shelves over here that I added the other day, and I've got, I think, 5 that I can see desktop thing, because I never throw them away. Even when they go bad, I never throw them out because I figure, well, I might be able to scrounge some parts out of them for something. But
nobody else does either. They stick them in their closet thinking they might have something on there they want someday. And
well, that's one reason why I don't like to throw them away, because you never know what kind of stuff you might have on your hard drive. So I just keep them. But yeah, so that's about the only thing I can say about stability is get yourself a cheap computer. And if you do use a laptop, just dedicate it to that machine.
I'm with Mark Lindsay. I am not a fan of the laptop for CNCs. I'm just it'll function the same pretty much, but there's so much stuff on the laptop, so many different programs. Unless you completely gutted it out and put a stock Windows, and then
well, they have so many power saving features on laptops because they run on a battery.
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right. So let's see what else we got on this list here. Let's see. Mach 3 with Windows 10. That's always a biggie. A lot of folks will say that Mach 3 will not work with Windows 10. Well, that's kind of half right, I guess.
I'm running one Windows 10 on 2 computers with Mach 3, no problem.
Yeah, it just won't.
Yeah. I run my GarageWorks Windows 10.
Yeah, but it just won't run a parallel.
Parallel in 64-bit mode. It's very, very specific what it won't run. 32-bit you can run parallel, not 64.
Yeah. So that's the big difference. And I always recommend, as you guys that have followed me know, get you a cheap little UC 100 or a UC 300 or a 400. But if you want to go the cheapest one, the UC 100, I have 3 or 4 of those things. And they just are fantastic. They work great. So,
or if you have a little bit more experience, I mean, $30-$40 will buy you one of those. 40 to 65 will buy you a USB controller. If you can rewire the whole thing. Get with the. There's no need to if your system works, but if you're designing a computer now and a system for an upcoming CNC, by all means go USB. There's no sense in starting with something that's antiquated. Although something that's antiquated, if you have it, it still works.
Yeah.
No difference.
Yeah, as long as you've got, if you're running a parallel port, it's, me, I always say if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
But I will say one day it will stop, as all computer things do eventually. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have a backup plan. Well, I always say even if you've got, for example, I bought a desktop from Michael Chipser, good little Dell desktop, and it had a parallel port. But even though it had a parallel port, I still go ahead and use the UC100 using the USB just because I don't have to worry about, well, what if it quits? You know, I'm already set up if that computer dies because I'm already set up to use USB connection. So it's just, you know, you
Yeah,
might as well plan ahead a little bit.
Yeah, there's always other options as well. They sell USB to parallel ports, and you can buy which is a cheaper configuration if you put in the legwork. But again, why are you going backward to go forward? You know, you're converting USB to parallel to go to a parallel port when you can just do it all with a USB controller.
I've never had any problem with parallel, so.
Yeah. If you have, that's just it. That's just it. One of my systems is parallel. The other two are USB. Why? Because I bought them more recently. But the parallel port one, this one here behind me is running parallel. I'm not changing it. It's perfectly fine. It's running an MX a lead shine MX 4660. Fantastic controller. Parallel. Solid. You know.
Mm-hmm.
If it ever breaks, I'll switch it to a hobby box. Just it'll work.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
I found it earlier. Now that I'm trying to find it, I probably won't be able to find it. But I was looking for. I think this is it. No, that Landis has on here. He's talking about designs and mods, screen set, downloads, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I saw it earlier.
Screen sets are great when you want to customize. I used to be, when I was younger, I used to be like with the Mac. I would design, or with the Windows, I designed my whole desktop around, you know, and then, but after re-updating and every time there's an update, they give you the stock one again, and all your customization goes away, and you have to do it all over again. Or a system crash, and you have to do it all over again. And then in the end, it was a lot of work just to customize it every time for no benefit. Instead of having the computer get used to you, you get used to the computer, and it's a lot easier. And the same thing applies to Mach 3. I mean, I do feel there are certain customizations that would be fantastic, you know, certain buttons that would save you a lot of trouble. But the problem with changing is,
I use
the problem with changing a screen is that when someone else that's used to Mach 3 goes to work on it, or when you're talking to somebody else, you're going to be talking two different languages.
Well, and that's exactly
I use that screen set.
Go ahead, Landon.
And modify my screens, like, you know, like you said, buttons and lights. I put the auto zero button, for example, right beside my auto zero switch, so that I can see that it works. But I also save, when I do a save as, and I give it a different number, so that I can always go back to my original 10 or 10 or this Mach 3 screen. But I modify mine. I've got one for my laser, and just have my laser settings on. I've got another screen just for my spindle. But screen 4, which is download from Mach 3 on their screen sets, it's really easy to use. It's really easy to modify.
Yeah, see, something like that, a hybrid, that works out perfect. Because if somebody else wants to use your computer, I mean, not CNC, not that anybody does, but if somebody else who's used to it comes and visits and wants to make something, they can just use the other screens.
Nobody's touching my machine.
No way, Jack.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been using Mach 3 for probably pretty close to 15 years now, and that's one reason why I've never changed the screen set, is because when you're trying to help somebody, and again, this goes back to the Mach 3 support, there's all these people using it. But if somebody's trying to help you and they've got a custom screen set and they're saying, well, the button you're looking for is on, oh, no, wait, that's not going to be the same on your, I have the default one and I've been using it forever. So I assume if it's somebody brand new, they probably hadn't got to the point where they're switching screen sets, or at least I hope not. But you can help them and tell them exactly where to go to check a little box or something like that. And it's always going to be the same. That's why I've always kept the default screen set. I really, and plus once you get used to it, it's hard to switch to something different. We're going to talk about UC CNC, not tonight, but another night, because that was on the poll. And I think it was like the second or third vote getter as far as wanting to discuss that. But I've used that before, but now, and I still have it. But when I go to use it, it's like it's so different than Mach 3. It does the same thing, but everything's in a different place. So I have to fumble through it. So let's see what else we got here. Just out of curiosity, how many, if there's anybody that's out there in the chat that is using a different screen set, put a comment in the chat here.
I use big text just because it says text.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me. It's big.
If you ever buy
big text, isn't it? Didn't it say big text? Is that
big
what?
text? Yeah, it's blue. It's blue.
If you ever buy a hobby box, I'll make sure to name it Hobby Text for
There
you.
you go.
Okay, well let's talk about some of this stuff here. And again, I want to thank Landis for putting together this list, because he did all the legwork. I'm just reading. That's all I'm doing. Let's talk about using Mach 3 to troubleshoot.
Yep. Oh,
That's
I know that all too well.
Landis, you wanna kick that off?
I didn't hear what you said, though.
Oh, I said you have on here using Mach 3 to troubleshoot.
Okay. Yeah. When I talk to people on the phone or through the internet, I tell them the first thing to do is to actually use Mach 3, not the machine running. Again, that's why I like the spare copy in my house, but to use the DRO to see if everything G code is functioning. So to me, that's the first thing in using Mach 3 to troubleshoot is look at your DROs, see if your X, Y, and Z are moving like you are supposed to move. Because if they don't, there's no sense putting it on the machine. It's not going to work. But most of the problem, can be out there, and then move to, start checking your I/O. Checking your, but using Mach 3 to troubleshoot. I go to the history, and I go to the troubleshooting page. I use that history function a lot, to see what happened if I have a problem.
Yeah.
And I go to the troubleshooting page to see if my I/O is working correctly. That kind of thing.
That diagnostic page is the best page ever.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Tommy.
I said the diagnostics page on Mach 3 is probably the page that I am on most.
Yes.
For everything, for analyzing everything. There's no point in other than the main page, there's no point in being on any other page.
Yeah, it does have some powerful features, and I've probably said this before on this show, but Mach 3 has a pretty decent manual. It's kind of dry reading.
It's a thick manual.
Yeah, it's kind of long.
I got it.
But,
right here.
It's full of stuff that I'll never use. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the problem. The Mach 3 does so much. It has a lot of stuff in there you won't read. But when you dig around and you find the parts you need, there's some really good stuff in there that helps you figure out problems that you might be having.
I got the little red labels on mine, so I find fast.
Yeah. Oh, you even printed it out. See, I won't print it out because it takes too much paper. So, and half of it's stuff I won't ever use. So I just keep it on a laptop, as a PDF file. But yeah, it's a little lengthy and trying to find something. But one thing I use all the time on my Gatton CNC is, I have just a cheap touch plate. It's just a piece of aluminum angle. And I'll always real quick hit that diagnostic page and touch it just to make sure. Because if you don't, and the one time you don't check it, it's a wire's come loose or something, and you think it's going to stop when it touches and it don't.
Yeah. And on I have on one of my machines, the spindle. I've got a wire already running from the board to the case of the spindle. So, and the spindle is metal throughout, so it's automatically I'm always ensured that it's going to be touching, regardless. Whenever I move slightly, adjust that spindle in the collet, or move it. In other words, if it ever moves out of the fixed position it was in, I always retest it, because if I had to put the clip on, I do like you do. I test it every time before, because I don't want to drive that bit and crack that bit if I drive it into the piece. But whereas I have something that's fairly permanent, the only time I test it, but I do test it, is when I move that spindle, because you never know. One wire can come loose, and that cracked bit will ruin your day.
Yeah, and on some of the touch plates that you can get, like the one I have for my Avid, it's got a spring in it. So you've got a few seconds when you see that, the spring's pushing down. You got a second or two to hit the e-stop or stop it. But if you're just using an aluminum plate like what I use for my Gatton CNC, particularly if I'm trying to see the Z-axis off of the top of that rotary axis, something's going to give. It's probably going to be the snap that drill bit or router bit. So I always use the diagnostic page to check that. And it's also good to use that to check your limit switches and all that kind of stuff, especially when you're setting up your limit switches. Mm-hmm. You can tell if they're working correctly.
Absolutely.
By taking your finger and hitting the switch and
before you accidentally smash the thing. And I've had issues. Speaking of limit switches, one thing to be careful of, folks, if you're installing limit switches, absolutely test the limit switch. And while that thing's moving, say somewhere in the middle, far away from your finger, click the limit switch, make sure it stops. But secondly, manually move the each axis to the limit switch and make sure it hits the limit switch first. Because sometimes what happens is people will set a limit switch and they'll go, oh, it's perfect. It clicks on and off in the diagnostic, and then they go to home and the limit switch doesn't even touch the thing. So now the gantry just goes and starts banging into the side or whatever, because it never even clicks the limit switch.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't use limit switches.
I also go to that diagnostic page to check my home, because you can do the home individual there. You can go at the top left. You can do the X, Y, and the Z all separate, one at a time. And I do that as a weekly thing. I go through and check, like you said, your limit switches. Mm-hmm. But I also found that since the manual tells you to wire your limit switches with pull-up resistors on a 450 ohm pull-up resistors. Now I rewired all of mine with that pull-up, and since then all of mine have been positive. When they hit, they're positive every time.
Okay. Let's see. We're knocking out the list here.
Yeah, like Mark Lindsay mentions, mechanical switches wear out. So, You remember that. When something goes wrong and you've done nothing, don't fool with the settings on Mach 3. Look at the diagnostics first. And remember, parts, especially moving parts, where.
Dave, Chuck Cobb's having a problem today. Maybe you can help him out a little bit. He says his Y and slave drive aren't working together in Mach 3.
All right. Well, I need to know really what kind of setup he's got. There's
a lot of info there. What type of controller? Are they both wired together to the same port, or are they slaved? Does he have the slave switch on? Are they running in different directions? There's a lot of
there's just too many variables there to be able to answer that one in a short amount of time.
Well, he must have them slave because he said slave drives, but other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another thing I use as part of that second part of using Mach 3 troubleshooting, though. I go to the MDI page, and there I type in, G0X5, so I know that it moves 5 inches.
Yep.
Checks my DROs. It says that did move 5 inches. Then I take a tape measure, verify it. And if it doesn't, then I go to calibration. But again, using 3 to help troubleshoot all that.
Yeah, especially if you're just setting up your steps and you're not sure. Because I'm sure you've seen it in the post about it too. People will set it up and they'll jog it and they'll see it move and they go, okay, well, it's all set. I'm ready to cut my first part. And then even if they're just cutting a test part, they go, well, wait a minute. The test part's supposed to be 4x4, but it's going 8x8, or maybe it's going 2x2. And it's all because they didn't check to see if the steps matched what it's actually moving before they started to cut something.
And if I can interject something, I did come in late, so I don't know if you've already mentioned this to the newbies, but we use acronyms, and I just want to make sure people realize that DRO, which we're saying a lot, is digital readout, which is the mostly it refers to the X, Y, and Z coordinates on Mach 3.
It's the numbers you see move.
It's the numbers you see move. So when we say DRO, we're talking about the positions of X, Y, and Z on the Mach 3 screen. So mostly.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Okay, I'm just reading your list here, Len. It says jog using shift key to select high speed and normal jog button for slow speed. All right.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, and that's one I never think to use.
Yeah, I jog
Same here.
slow, and like you said, the shift key, get it over there, then let go of my shift key so that it jogs in nice and slow, that I know that I get it centered the way I want. I've had a lot of people fuss about they don't like having to turn their jog down. I said, well, you don't have to do that. Shift is there for that function.
Yeah. And that's something I should start doing, actually. And actually that works really well if you do not have a pendant. And I'm not talking about the virtual pendant in Mach 3, but a real pendant, because if you do have one, you're probably using that to move around and set it up to zero out stuff. But
and if you don't have one, you need to get one. They're very handy.
Yeah, I knew about the shift key thing, but it's just something that I very rarely do because I always forget about it.
Well, I'm always
usually the stuff I'm setting up. I usually go from the center of the material, and I'll measure and I put a little X or whatever, and all I'm worried about is getting it eyeball close anyway, because most of my stuff is inside a skeleton, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So
I don't use the keyboard most of the time. I use this silly thing, but the funny part, if it moves fast, I know it's set on fast. If it doesn't move at all, after making this mistake so many times, and by the way, for all you newbies out there, you're going to make this mistake, guaranteed. When you hit that arrow and that thing doesn't move, it might be on 0.01 or 0.0, it might be on micro stepping. And you're going, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? Why? It is. It went 0.001. You just didn't see it.
Yeah.
So remember, if you're not set to fast mode, because you needed something precise, remember to set it back.
Yeah. Chuck says he's got the new Gecko G540. So that would be something I don't know anything about. That would be something you'd want to contact the Gecko folks about, I guess, if you're having problems with it, because I don't know anything about a Gecko. I don't have one, never used one. And
yeah, if one cuts out, if one works for a few minutes and then it cuts out, I would suspect a weak driver, part of a weak driver out of the 4. But
yeah.
If it's just set up on, it wouldn't work at all.
Yeah,
you need to probably contact your techs there.
Yeah, it's a 90% chance it's one of two things. It's either a bad driver inside the Gecko, or a loose wire that's intermittent. But
yeah, Tom must have some experience with a Gecko.
Oh, also,
So,
for anyone that, whatever board you have, but this applies to 90% of the boards out there. Anything that has those little dip switches on it, those little switches on there. Be very careful and make sure if you're having a problem, like for the drivers, for instance, the DM542s and things like that. If you're having an issue, this is mostly for first-time builds, but if you're having an issue and it's not working exactly as it's supposed to, you suspect it might be a switch, turn all the switches one way and then the other way, quickly and full, because sometimes they're finicky, those switches. They look like they're on, but they're only 75% on and they're really off, or vice versa. Sometimes they get in the middle. You have to make sure you hear a full click. Some of those are a little I'll say substandard. And that applies for everything. The Geckos, switches, the DM542s, the Sane Smart controllers, all of them. Because I've had issues with them in the past.
all right, we've just about.
I see someone.
Go ahead,
I
Landon.
see someone wrote a question. It says, "Do you do calibration checks regularly, or only when you see it doing something wrong?" I personally I check I say every Monday morning I do a little walkthrough. I look at my white marks on my couplings to make sure they haven't moved. I've got a gauge block I set between my motor and my couplings, so I make sure that nothing has changed, everything's still aligned. And I do I do that, G. I go to
You're a better man
NDI,
than I am, Gun
G, O, X. Yep.
Yeah, I'm. When it goes wrong, that's when I fix it. Other than that, I never.
Well,
Same here.
It depends on
I don't
what
wait
kind of
then.
stuff. It depends on what kind of stuff you're running,
sorry?
because if you're running parts that fit together, you're going to know when your calibration is off, because all of a sudden
Right.
they fit together yesterday, now they don't fit together.
Right.
Don't fit together. So something, and again, it may be something mechanical. So you want to check that first, but then you can, and basically, whatever, when you draw your part up, what size it's supposed to be. All you got to do is measure it, especially if it's something small, you can measure with calipers and find out for sure whether you're off or not. But
and for
if
troubleshooting,
you're just doing 3D carving or something,
mm-hmm.
you might run for a long time and be out of calibration and don't know it, because it's not going to matter much.
Yeah. A note about troubleshooting, because a simple guide to troubleshooting, if you want, because I've got to go through this with my little rotary engraver. For those of you that have been following me in the past, I've had an issue with the Y losing steps. And first thing you check is mechanical. Always check the couplers. Always check the drive. Then the next thing you check is the wiring from the controller to the all the way to the motor, and back and forth and back and forth. And then other than that, other than putting it on an oscilloscope, which you can't do if there is still a problem, it could possibly be a weak motor, a bad motor losing steps, which is rare for stepper motors, or a bad controller. But odds are it's either a coupler or a loose wire.
All right, let's move on here. Landis, you have on here Mach 3 and JTech PIC laser board not working. So I guess there were some comments about that in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I've had quite one, and mine works great. But I started, it didn't. I had a terrible time getting it to work. And a lot of people are having that and getting aggravated and pushing aside. But it works, to, was it minus 240 counts, I think it is. And it's 0 to 4 volts. Some of them are actually working backwards and not noticing that if you put 0 in, it'll go to full voltage. And that's where I think some of them are making the mistake. But if it does, it's a simple thing that a spindle can run clockwise or clockwise. So you change your M1, your start M3 command is usually forward, and then the other one is reverse. You have to roll those two. But like I said, that board to me works great, but it's a bear to set up.
Yeah, and there's also a Facebook group for the JTech stuff. I think they talk about the PIC laser board in that, because that's one of the few groups that I'm a member of besides my own. But I see that quite a bit. People having trouble getting those things set up.
I never got mine going. I put it in a box somewhere around here. I don't even know where it is.
It does.
Well, the laser's not that hard to get going.
Dark.
Using that PIC laser thing there's a little bit more to it, I think. I don't have one of those. All right. I think we're is there any other questions out there about Mach 3? Let's see. Rick Hammond says, kind of Mach 3 rotary axis question. My rotary axis disables the Y, so the A becomes the Y. So when I'm picking my post processor, use the Mach 2/3. Well, ATC means automatic tool changer, so I don't know if it has that on there or not. I'll have to look. I'll open that up and see.
That's for rotary. Yeah, rotary.
Yeah.
You don't know. It has does it have a manual, or is just ATC only?
I don't think. I'm trying to think if it's got ATC. I don't think it does, but I could be wrong. Now I got to find, when I redid my, got that new version of eCar Pro, it moved my icon to a different spot. So now I have to hunt for it.
God, I love the new, I am in love with 10.5.
Let's see if I can find something that's rotary on here. Here we go.
Every shortcut that used to take me long has just been incorporated. It's a beautiful thing.
Mark said it's okay to use the Mach 2.3 wrap Y2A ATC inch.
Yeah, it does have ATC on there. I was thinking it didn't, but I guess it does. But yeah, I mean, you got a choice of two. It depends on whether your rotary is replacing the Y or replacing the X axis, depending on.
Mark answered, and he said that the Vectric rotary axis post processors only come in the ATC. So that probably answers that question.
Yeah. I knew there was only two, but I guess I never paid attention that it's got ATC on it.
Works for me. I'm all about ATC. And by the way, for those of you out there that are thinking that that ATC tool paths are only for very expensive auto tool change things, it's not the case. It's I run my machines, and I mentioned this before, with basically with the ATC, and it will stop. It'll stop. I change bits, and then it continues. It's basically one toolpath for all bits, stopping in between to swap bits and dust boot and remeasuring zero and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets a little complicated, so not many people talk about it.
But you still have to reset Z.
Well, that's just it. See, my machines, all of them, have a second touch plate fixed on the side of the machine and at a specific height relative to the machine. So no matter what it does is every bit, you already set zero. Well, it will go and it will measure the bit first. Then it'll do your thing. Then you swap your bit. And then it'll go and measure the bit again automatically and do the calculation of the difference in height between the prior bit and the new bit and re-zero zero automatically.
The post processor does that?
Yes, I've got a macro that does that in the post processor.
Did you do it yourself?
Yeah, no, that it came with this machine, and then I copied it to the other machine.
Okay.
So
cool.
yes and no, I kind of did it myself, but I copied it. So
You copied it yourself.
I copied it myself. That's right.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Close enough.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's sweet. It takes. I don't have to do the touch plate and take out the clip and do it. No, it all. Once I zero it once, I can do any number of bit changes. It'll come. This thing tells me, it moves over to home and says, remove the dust boot and change the bit. I remove the dust boot, change the bit, and then it goes and remeasures the bit, the difference in height, re-zeros automatically, does the calculation, comes back and says, place the dust boot on and hit enter. I place the dust boot, boom, it continues with that bit. Oh, it's fantastic. I'll talk to you later. I'll have a class.
Okay, do we have any other questions about Mach 3? If you do, put them in the chat because we are fixing to sign off of here.
Just Mach 3'd out.
Mark says be sure you don't have ignore tool change checked in your settings if you do that. Well, that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, because your project won't turn out too good if you do.
Cool.
You're starting to get questions in there about that macro. Where can I get it?
That's a good question. I have to break apart my computer. I've done it so long. There are different ones out there. Yeah, Richard Kowalski's Legacy Maverick does the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I hate is changing bits, but you have to do it. So, anything to make that better would be golden.
Yeah. Oh yeah, auto tool ATC is auto tool change. I'm sorry if we're using macros for. I keep forgetting every time we use a macro, we got to identify it because sometimes we're so used to them, but somebody that's just getting into CNC, computer numerical control.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there. On that note,
Don't need to charge Mark.
all right.
Have a good dinner, Mark.
Just looking at Tom says, "Whoops, I thought you can do it in the stock Mach 3 you purchase." I'm not sure what he's saying there.
Probably talking about the ATC. Well,
Yeah.
I know they've got different ATC post processors, but I didn't really know how it worked. Learn something new every day. That's what we do this for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can run that. I never do it that way. I always make each tool a different profile. I'm just old school. That's how I've always done it. But you can set it up where you throw all the tools in there and it will just stop with a, what is it, M6 code or whatever it is.
Yeah, the pause command.
And you change the thing and then reset it and then hit go and it takes off and goes from there.
And
But
you
I
can
don't,
also
I don't see
manually.
a big advantage doing that for the hobbyist myself. But
Right. I mean, it isn't. If you have to re-zero everything, you're right. There's no advantage. If you have to bring out the zero, you're doing the same thing anyways. You might as well just do them separately and not chance a mistake. In my case, I've got that automatic touch plate, which will automatically, so it's a 10-second bit change, and my job continues. So it's really handy. But it also depends, like Dave said, on what you run. If all you do is run a 1/4-inch straight end mill and cut parts, there's no reason to have a tool changer. If all you're doing, if you're doing 17 different bit changes, well, then you should get one.
yeah. All right, folks. Well, we've gone over here just an hour. I think we've covered pretty much all the topics that we had, or the questions that Landis had wrote down here in this end. Thanks again, Landis, for taking the time to go through and get that. That's all good stuff.
I would like to add one thing to all the new people. It's just a suggestion from me, but I keep a journal on every wire that I change, every thing I do in my machines that I change, how they work out, because a year later, when someone else has a problem, I look at my book to see if I've experienced that, one, and two, I forget myself and don't want to duplicate. But I keep you talk about automatic tool change. I tried it and I got it written down how it worked for me, which it didn't work for me too well. I didn't like it, so I took it out. But those, to me, I keep a journal.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'm not that organized.
Well, I will say this. I'm also so on the organization. But as far as keeping a journal, I started doing that about 5-10 years ago when my memory started failing. It's my extra memory.
Yeah.
Now, the sad part is I don't refer to the journal when I forget something, because I forget the journal's there.
My luck, if I filled one out, I wouldn't be able to find the journal.
That's right. That's me, Dave.
That's the problem.
Because it's a safe place where I won't lose it, That's what happens with me. But all right, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. We've had a pretty good session, I think. And I'll go back and check the poll. The poll is still on the Facebook page. We decided to start, or I decided to start with the Mach 3 because it was probably the number one thing that people voted for, is what they wanted us to talk about. But we will be covering other topics that were on that poll based on the request. And also, if you've got anything you want to add that maybe something you've never heard us talk about, I don't know what that would be, because we pretty much covered it all over the last 3 or 4 years. So, but you may have missed it. But yeah, feel free to add anything to that poll, or go vote for whatever you want to
I'm
talk
definitely
about.
going to add. I love the new 10.5 editions. I'm looking forward to chatting about those.
About what?
The new 10.5 upgrades for the V-Carve.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Those it's just phenomenal.
I haven't checked all of the stuff, but I was using V-Carve yesterday, or Aspire yesterday, and I like that they're letting you add more tools.
When Mark Lindsay told me about the upgrade to 10.0, until then I wasn't. I don't know if I should buy it. And then he told me about those upgrades, and I was extremely excited about those upgrades. Now I looked at the ones in 10.5. I was just as excited about these. It's like they took all the stuff that I do on a regular basis, and turned it into one function kind of thing. Well, we'll get into it another day.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Javi, Becca, Landis, and that Rusty fella. Thank you for joining me tonight. And we will all see you, I guess, next week. I'll have to go look to see what the top vote getter is for next week. I can't remember what the second one. I think it was UC CNC for a while, but then I think something got more than that. So I'll have to go look and see what it is. But whatever, we'll find a topic that y'all want us to talk about, and we'll do it. So if I can find the right button here, every time I do the coffee session so much that when I get ready to do this show just once a week, I'm like, oh, there it is. It's there. All right. So everybody wave and smile. Say goodnight, and we'll see you all next week. Everybody have a good
See you, though.